Gaming and BS episode 290, coming to you Monday, April 20th, 2020. Welcome to Gaming and BS, a tabletop RPG podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show, folks. Welcome back. Glad everybody's on board. You know, Sean, it dawned on me today. I know a few people that like to partake in the Illinois substance of choice. And it's 420.
Marijuana?
Yeah, it's 4/20/2020. So I assume what's going to happen, people are going to get so goddamn baked, they'll forget what day it is, look at it and go, oh, it's 2020, do it again, and then one last gasp before they pass out. So I think it's going to be a triple baked day. Is what I think is going to happen.
4/20/2020. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be... certain folks I know are going to be triply baked today.
And at 4:20 today would have been
and they probably still are. Because it's 4:20.
It won't happen like this for another, what? I don't know how many years.
Anyway. Just
thousands of years.
It's a silly, funny, weird thing on the side. All right, let's see here. Announcements. Let's move on. I didn't do anything cool this last. Did you game this last weekend before I get into it?
I did not game this weekend, though. I did watch a few people on Twitch for Chaos Con by Goodman Games.
Cool.
So
Chaos Con, you mean Cyclops?
Cyclops Con. I am sorry, you guys. Cyclops Con, yes. Like Bruce Cunnington was running some games. I saw Jen Brinkman at the end, but I couldn't get the audio on because I was sitting in my living room. So I saw Jen Brinkman was on running DCC. Awesome. I don't know if Ray was in that. I know Jeff Seifert was in that game, so amongst others. Yeah, so it was cool.
Yeah, it was turkey hunting season for me, so I was out in the woods.
Gobble, gobble.
Yeah, didn't get anything. The weather was crap for turkey hunting, but it was fun anyway.
Yeah.
All right,
Announcements.
Let's see. Event registration for GameholeCon is live. And GameholeCon is November 5th through the 8th of this year. So from Alex and the boys over there, I've seen many different posts and such. And the plan is that it's still going to happen, right? Because it's out in November. And hey, get your events registered now. So, Sean, you and I have been talking about different things we want to do, kind of a Gaming and BS event type of thing. So offline from here, we need to have a little virtual Gaming and BS directors meeting, figure out what the hell that's really going to look like.
Yes, the board of director meeting, yes.
Yes, because we've bandied a few ideas about some sort of a DCC funnel, some sort of Call of Cthulhu-y thing, a dungeons versus, adventures versus monsters. I don't know. I got a couple different ideas I want to throw at you, so we'll talk about it offline, but... Want to do something.
So they did put out a newsletter. If you're not signed up for that, go over and they've announced things. They mentioned hey, do you want a GameholeCon in November? I don't know why Alex would throw that out there in such a question. I would hope that everybody that's subscribed and, given today's climate, that everybody would want a GameholeCon. So, I think he's saying that by show us that you want this convention by submitting events.
Yeah, kind of like, hey, this is like Cyclops Con and Con of Champions and so forth, which we're going to talk about here. Con of Champions is May 23rd to the 25th, which is online. That goes to help tabletop events, which we've talked about. But by signing up and getting this thing going for GameholeCon, getting your events registered and so forth, that helps. Having been a con runner for a few years, this is the events at the con are what drives the attendance, right? People would tell me at EverCon, I don't see enough events yet. I'm not going to sign up. I'm not going to sign up. I don't see enough events yet. And it is crazy how hard it can be sometimes to get people to put events into the damn schedule. So I encourage you, if you plan to go to GameholeCon and you want to run an event, get it in there. Because if nothing else, much like anything to do with gaming conventions, the faster you're in there, you say, I want to run Friday at noon. There's always so many Friday at noon spaces open, people. There may be a lot of them. They got a shit ton of space. But believe you me, that shit fills up fast. There are a couple of buddies of Sean and I that said, I was trying to run a game or get in a game. The get in a game thing is a little more common. But I did hear people tell me, I wanted to run a game on Saturday in the free space I had, but I waited too long to get my event in, and I couldn't do it. So don't be that dude. Don't be that guy. Don't be that gamer person, man.
No.
Shit in there.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, what else we got?
I want to thank everybody out there that special shout out to Larry Hollis for helping us become an official Twitch affiliate. So it's not
that sounds cool. What does that get us?
Yeah, it gives us a lot of bells and whistles, allows us to earn a little bit more money, which, isn't going to be a ton, which is fine. But to become a Twitch affiliate, you have to have so many followers, you have to have streamed so many hours within a certain period of time, et cetera, et cetera. So there's this criteria of qualifications, and we were sitting at like 42 followers, and you have to have 50 to become a Twitch affiliate. And so it's like
on the edge.
I'm not a big fan of like, hey, everybody, follow us, and we're at 900 followers on Twitter. Just 100 more to get to 1,000. I'm not usually that guy.
No, neither of us have been that person.
But
that's just not our thing.
We were so close, and I was like, I know we'll eventually hit it. So I just put it out there, and a few people retweeted and said, hey, let's get these guys over the hump. So thank you, everybody that did that. I know. Yeah, Larry was like, where are you at? I'm like, you're like number 46, Larry. He's like, all right. And he like, hey, get these guys over the hump. And so there's some of our followers came through and some of the BSers. So thank you, everybody.
Man, our BSers are awesome people.
Yeah, man. Gamers, dude.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I've yet to meet a BSer. I'm like, oh, boy, I don't like that person. Every single one of you that's written in, had a say to us, met us somewhere, talked to us, communicated with us in any way, every single one of you have been goddamn awesome. So thank you very much.
Just wanted to throw that out there. So it gives us allows people to subscribe to our channel and allows them to purchase emotes and bits, and which we have some interesting ones that'll be coming out. But it's just, that's the thing. So that's all I had for announcements, Brett.
Cool. Oh, I do have my speaking of Twitch though, my Streets of Avalon game is this Saturday.
Yes. So I don't know if this episode will drop in time.
Well, you get on the stick, boy.
Well, I got stuff going on, man.
Like what?
Promoting and getting your shit in order, actually.
You got a couch that needs sitting? Come on, let's go.
Jeez. I'm doing a custom background for Brett's live stream, and I'll be producing that. Yeah, man.
Damn.
Yeah, Brett.
No, I joke. Obviously, I joke because I can't do any of this shit without you, dude. So thank you very much.
And I have got Mothership on Thursday night at 8 o'clock.
Do you?
Right here on Twitch. Every other Thursday. And
well, even if this drops too late, you don't catch it.
Yeah.
It'll be on Twitch, which means eventually it goes to YouTube, correct?
Yes, correct.
Very good.
Yep.
Cool. I don't know if this will end in one session or not. I'll see how it goes.
Oh, no.
I got I could see it running the length that it did at GameholeCon when I ran it. So we'll see what happens. Could be fun.
Sure. Yeah. So
is that it?
That's it.
All right, move on.
Random encounter. Segment of the show where we field emails, voicemails, comments from social media and our forums.
You can start.
I'll start. Comment to changes to playing online from Tom.
No, this first sentence here is the reason I want Sean to do it, because I want to hear Sean say these words.
Oh, man. Here we go, ladies and gents. I think Brett has it exactly right here.
Can you say it with the underscore and bolding that exactly deserves? I'm kidding. Carry on.
I think Brett has it right here.
Nice. Anyway, carry on.
We've been playing over Zoom lately, and it's worked fine for our gaming style. I'm a tinkerer, though, and have been looking at Roll20. The urge to try and use all the features is hard to resist. Our group is, for the most part, not all that technically oriented, so I need to keep what they need to do to a minimum. Mainly, I would just be using the handout option, putting up pictures, etc. We might occasionally use the map. We don't use one of the supported systems, so basic is best. But still, I keep looking up Fog of War, adapting maps and secret GM layers, etc., etc., etc. I really need to just stop and run the game like on Zoom. I actually might stay with Zoom just to resist temptation to tinker, but Roll20 is so shiny.
Well, Tom, I'll tell you what you talked about doing there, just using it for the handout option, putting up pictures, etc. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'll be doing that tomorrow in my Tuesday Avalon game. And it's working very well with that group. Like, hey, here's an image of what this looks like. Here's an image of this creature. Holy shit, what the fuck is that? That's one of these. And I take the character notes and I throw them out in handouts from every session. So referencing that stuff, it's pretty cool. It works very, very well for that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So let's see here. Thank you, Tom, by the way, for writing in. Very cool.
Yeah.
And
Thanks, Tom.
And it is tricky, just to reiterate that Roll20 is shiny, all those features and things and Fantasy Grounds, all those cool things out there. They're just freaking cool, man. So it's tough. It's tough to stay simple. Let's see here. Al comments on the forums about GMs rolling dice for players. I GM online, specifically on Roll20. So skill checks, perception are divided arbitrarily by me into two groups. Things that can change the role play, like intimidate, are GM roles that the player sees but not the other players. It's the difference between Stinky the dwarf sidles up to the guard, stroking his axe and muttering, "Wait until we hear his answer, sweetie," and Knuckles the thief minces up to the guard, reaches for his buckle knife, and actually drops his pants. Things that can change the character's health, etc., like climbing a wall, are handled with an API script blind roll. Only the GM sees the roll. That's the difference between I carefully inch up the wall 5 feet and then slowly move along the north wall, and you get about halfway up the 50-foot wall when you suddenly pitch backwards with a loose bit of stone in your hand and take 12 damage and roll a con save. I like that. That's pretty cool. If you look at dice that could change role play, having it be that, especially if your group likes that piece, like, hey, I use that to help me role play. Cool. Roll the die privately so that player sees it, and then they instigate their role playing based on that. And the same type of thing with the character health pieces. I like it. Very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Over to you, Sean.
DM Kojo emails us on GMs making rolls for players. Greetings, BSers. I wanted to chime in about GMs making player rolls. As you mentioned in the episode, it depends a bit on the players. First off, metagaming in RPGs drives me crazy. I expect my players to run their characters in a manner that is consistent with the game rules, alignment, etc. The precedent that they have set for the PC's behavior in previous games, if applicable, and make sure that they don't use player knowledge to alter what their PC would do.
Fair.
When I am playing with a group that I know well, and that I trust to set the player knowledge aside, I don't have a problem with them rolling the dice for things that their PC would not know the success or failure of. However, when I am playing with less experienced players or players I don't know, such as a con game, then I typically would make those rolls for them in secret.
Interesting.
Additionally, when I make the rolls for them, I often will try to give them some narrative clues regarding the nature of the roll without actually telling them the result. After I roll and I know they failed a check, I may describe it as they are attempting to move silently and they feel like they are being successful, but they may have kicked a small stone during the attempt. They don't know if they are actually moving silently or not. On the flip side, if they barely make the roll, I would describe it the same way. However, if they easily make the roll, I would relate the result to them in a narrative manner that they feel more confident about their attempt this way. The attempt. This way, they are always guessing and never metagaming the results of the roll. I feel like this is important for any actions that they would not necessarily know if they were successful or not. Great topic as always. Thanks, DM Kojo.
I like that. I think the other cool thing, we've talked to Kojo personally and about other things on the show before, and there's a piece where Kojo's going to say, look, I'm going to do this, and I'll give you a narrative. He's going to tell you, this is how I run my table, which I think is a key piece here. And Kojo, to tell us if we're wrong, and you actually like to just surprise the poor motherfucker and go, ha ha, I roll these in secret, dick. I assume you don't do that. You this is how the table runs. I think this is cool. I think the other, a lot of different ways to do it. Al's comment and Kojo's piece, different approaches. But I think as long as you're consistent and you explain yourself and everybody's like, oh, cool, yep, that's how we roll. All right, then let's just keep it going that way. I like the idea of the narrative component and the fear. which is the thing I thought that Tim did really well for you and I during the Astonishing Swordsman game, is that he would roll, and I'd be like, so, yeah, you think you got it? Okay. Sometimes it was just a simple, you think you got it, you're confident you have it. Just a little verb, a little adjective tweak, a little bit of confidence in the, you seem, you think, you're certain, you're positive. Well, those are all different words. They all have totally different meanings. It can impact the play a lot. So you don't even need to be terribly evocative in your narration. Just use the right word to get people keyed in. So good stuff, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Kojo.
All right. Dirtless, a.k.a. Dan, emails us about GMs, good God, GMs making rules for players. Just listen to rolling for players. I like both ways. If I'm DMing, I gear it towards the players. There are a few ways I've seen it or have run it. I was at a convention game hole and playing some D&D. A pair of Tabaxi rogues, would roll every 5 feet of the cave they were exploring. It was taking forever, but everyone at the table, including the DM, saw how much fun they were having, so we rolled with it. Rolling dice is damn fun. Pre-rolling, everyone roll me 2 20s and tell me the results, and then in the middle of the adventure, the DM would say, what's your dex modifier, and would add the modifier to your pre-roll. The DM rolling is great for adding suspense as long as it's not overdone. Rolling dice is fun. Dirtless, a.k.a. Dan. I have not seen the pre-rolling idea. I want to say I've heard of it before, but I can't tell if I have or not. My memory is cloudy on that. But the idea of, in a game like a D20 game, roll me 2 20s, cool, record, keep the results aside, and then use them in that order at some random point in the game. Interesting. It's almost like a twist on Cypher System, in a way. I don't know. Kind of reminds me of GM Intrusions or something like that. Tracking with me, Sean?
I am tracking with you.
Look a little spaced out there, buddy.
No,
okay?
no, not that's.
All right. Just checking. It is 4:20. I just want to make sure you're with me.
Oh, Sean does not indulge.
I know. I'm just
it's illegal, man.
Uh-huh.
Here in Wisconsin, anyway.
That stops everybody.
Right.
Okay, no, cool. I like this. I think the other thing that's interesting is when Dan talks about the Tabaxi rogues and they're rolling every 5 feet. It takes forever, but everyone's having fun. Sometimes events like this start happening and you have all intentions and your intents and purposes are like, hey, guess what? I'm going to roll these dice and this, that, and the other thing. And somehow that pesky player, Eileen, starts rolling her own dice for the thing you swore this time you were going to roll for all the players. But by God, everyone's having fun with it. It might not be the time to step in and say, I'm sorry. I know you guys have been having fun for the last 5 minutes, but I'm going to put the kibosh on that. We're going to go back to this other thing and stop everybody's fun. So I love the fact that, seemed to be taking forever, but everyone saw how much fun they were having, so they rolled with it. I think that's important. When you're seeing people having a good time doing something, it might not necessarily be the time to squish everybody's fun. Again, your mileage and results may vary, but I like that. I think that's pretty cool. Cool, man. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Over to you, sir.
Timemonger gets some time to email us on a few things here. He said, Sean,
Lord.
Please read this. I'm not sure why. Maybe he just likes my sultry tone.
I don't see why I wouldn't.
So he writes, hey guys, I just wanted to say how much I've been enjoying you guys' show as we've been isolated due to the virus. I have been going into work still because I work in shipping and receiving. I have a few pointers or suggestions or comments about the last few shows that have not been able to voice until now. So stay safe, Ty. Just wanna say that,
Holy
yeah.
crap, dude.
Yep. Due to the isolation, the group that I play with a lot online, and that's how I've been playing a lot lately, we've been playing a lot of different games or trying out different games to see if what is out there now that we have time to be able to give it the attention that it needs. Even though the system that got us all to play together online with Discord is ICRPG. So that's the Index Card RPG for those.
That's right.
Yeah. But one of the games has been my favorite, of course, Fate. A little side note, Brett, I don't know why you've been keeping this a secret from everybody else, but Fate Condensed has come out on Drive-Thru RPG, pay what you want, and it's a great book, dropping the page number from over 300 pages down to around 50 and has made a lot of improvements.
Interesting.
May have to check that out.
I'll have to take a look at this.
Yeah. He continues. Another system we've been trying out is the system made by Tiny D6. We've been checking out their game systems, seeing if any of theirs are a good match for the group. We're even adventuring into making our own, which is a collage of a couple systems together. I think on average, we're playing probably close to 5 to 6 games a week, about 2 to 3 hours per game. So basically a lot of short campaign-style one-shots.
Interesting.
That's still a good amount. That's
I was going to say, damn, good on you, man. Being able to get that much time to game. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, 10 to 18 hours, I think, is my math. I
don't do math.
If I math that correctly.
I wouldn't math that correctly, which is why I trust you. Carry on.
For turn order, we use ICRPG system where we make a rotation, usually starting with the tank type of person, DPS types, damage per second, or strikers to non-WoW players. I am a non-WoW player.
As am I.
Brett, Brett
don't play
plays WoW like every day.
Yeah. With my vertigo-induced motion sickness from those type of games, that's a lot of fun for me.
Brett's WoW game is wow.
I feel better now. Carry on.
So he says, tank type of person and end in me as the healer, then the baddies end out of the rotation. Wherever we stop in rotation, we pick it back up on the next time we need to act in turn order. That rotation does not change through the game, but we do have an amendment to the rule, and that is if a person really feels that they want to do an action after somebody else, then for that rotation, we will make that adjustment. Then we will go back to that rotation that we used before from then on. Is that perfectly clear, Brett?
It makes sense. I remember back in the old days, I'll do a quick aside here. See, when we played AD&D with my high school crew, you roll your turn-based initiative or side-based initiative. And when it was our turn, we'd be like, okay. And sometimes before the first D20 was rolled, like, what are we going to do? It's a lich. It's a Ifrit, whatever it is. We say, okay, the fighter does this first, then the cleric, then this, then the thief, and then finally the wizard mops him up. Done. And then next round, we might change that. We did have kind of a standard order of battle for older school games where we said, oh, he's this, and leave the cleric at the end just in case somebody needed to be healed. Or sometimes we always had the cleric go first. I shouldn't say always. Sometimes we'd make the cleric go first, change that up because we wanted the cleric to go first in case somebody got hurt, was already hurt from the previous round. So then we'd have like a first round and second round, and we were in high school. We made it more complicated than it needed to be. But I dig it. I like the idea.
Where did I lead off? Okay.
This also helps.
This also helps with the effect of not over-talking somebody and gives everybody a chance to have their speech. I know how it can be difficult, especially if you're playing a certain character that likes to make comments about what has just happened, and that's their style of play. I myself play a particular character that loves to put in his flavor of how he likes to speak to everybody whenever somebody takes an action, but I try to keep it brief.
Cool.
On the topic of hidden roles by the GM, so the players do not know if the bad guys can hear them or our group is liking the idea. We just have not had a chance to try it out yet. We will get back to you on that one. But on opening a locked door or chest, ICRPG uses a 1 heart, aka 10 points. You have to end up doing 10 points of effort over time to open the chest or to find the clue. As a GM, I like for my players to think of a different way of doing things. It makes it more interesting. I could go on for hours talking about RPGs, and I have in the past. So just think of this as part 1 of our conversation. Timemonger.
Very nice.
Timemonger.
We'll have a link in the show notes to the Fate Condensed.
Yes.
So a little link out there for that.
Yes.
Very cool. I think. Anyway, no, there's some good stuff in there. I like that. That might actually spawn a show idea too, if nothing else, just on side-based initiative. There's a thing I've excuse me, when we talked earlier about, before we get into the main topic here, let's see here, when he was talking about how many hours, 5 to 6 games a week. And one of the things, I just had a chat with my my two youngest kids, AJ and Lana, we were talking about gaming. And this last weekend, we were going to do some gaming. The week before, we were going to get like the next phase of the 5e campaign. And I was talking to him, and I said, look, I don't want to push you kids to game with me if you don't want to. They're like, yeah, we get busy, and then we forget we were going to, whatever. And then my lovely little daughter says, how about we just schedule it?
What?
They get busy. They're busy doing stuff, man. Like Ilana will be FaceTiming her friends and drawing, because she loves drawing art and writing stories and doing stuff.
I suppose art is cool.
You'll be, Connor, my oldest boy, will have break from Air Force, so he'll be online with Connor. I'm not going to say, oh, don't play with your brother. He's on break from the Air Force.
He gets break from Air Force.
Yeah. Because every once in a while, he's got to get out of the chair, move to a different chair.
Oh,
I love you Air Force guys.
Air Force guys, man.
It's one of the only group I have more fun picking on. I've never been in it. is our Coast Guard guys.
Oh well, they're not even. I usually don't run into those guys, so I don't have an opportunity.
I've met a couple of coasties. They take it really well, but holy cow, that's a tough bunch of bastards.
Yeah,
let me tell
it's a tough job.
Anyway, I give my son shit for it too. Anyhow, point is I'm not going to drag AJ and Connor away from having some brother time.
We'll have brother time together in a dungeon.
See, that's what we're going to do. So every Wednesday after dinner, we're going to play something.
Yeah.
And the kids were like, oh, but I wanted to run. Oh, my campaign's not ready. I said, don't worry. So you see that shelf of shit behind me? Like, oh, yeah, you have a lot of games. Exactly. I ever play Call of Cthulhu, Trail of Cthulhu? Oh, Ilana said, I've never played a Cthulhu game. Oh, I'd really like to. And then AJ, wise young 14-year-old boy, says, we need to expand our horizons.
Oh.
And play some more games. So when we want to design our own games, we'll have experience with other systems. Yeah. So I feel like I did something right there. I feel like I did something right.
Yeah. There's hope for those kids.
Yeah, there is.
And you, Brett.
Maybe. I'm gone. There's nothing you can do for me. But the kids have a chance. So that's good.
They're the future.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on.
All right, let's get into the main topic, man. What the hell are we talking about? Jeepers creepers. All right, Brett.
So Sean came up with this thing.
I stole it from another podcast.
Who is that, Sean?
I stole it from Hobbs.
Hobbs and Friends of the OSR.
I did. So he can strut around and he could be like, see.
That was my thing.
Yeah, it was my thing. We hit him and Thaddeus Moore.
So I believe that Sean gave me this one. He goes, hey, in D&D 5e, what does a shortbow, spear, javelin, trident, and hand crossbow all have in common? And that's right, kids. They all do the same amount of damage.
They all do the same damage. So I was going to list a bunch of them that were like, oh, they all will do 1d6. And then somebody would say, oh, but this one does bludgeoning, this one does slashing, this one does piercing.
Uh-huh.
These are all piercing, and they all do the same damage.
Yeah. So why do we, in certain games, have such detail for weapon types all do the same damage? I know that there are some games that do chunk things out into damage ranges or damage classes, and there are other games that get even more nitty gritty. A 9mm fired out of a carbine does more damage than the 9mm fired out of a pistol, which is true because there's more power in it because of barrel length and blah blah blah. Sean, you say you have an answer. What's the answer?
Wankery. Am I right? Did I win a prize?
I think there's a bit of wankery involved, but I think the other component is that we've talked about this ages and ages past. Way early in the podcast. God, I think. How long have we been doing this, Sean? 5 years, 6 years?
Oh, it's give or take a few months, I think, now.
All right. So 200
couple months.
Almost 300 episodes later. When I was a kid in first edition AD&D or anything, you grabbed a longsword because you rapidly found out in my campaigns I played in that longswords, that's where the magic was at. And you needed to get magic weapons. And it was easier to find magic swords than it was to find magic +2 maces or warhammers or axes. So you could have a dwarf. You'd be like, wow, I have a dwarf with an axe. This will be fucking awesome. Just like, oh, I have a same stupid axe I've had forever. And the other guys all have +3 swords that are +2 against flaming creatures. And all right, fine. Fuck it. I'll take a longsword. Right? It just became... You wanted to have a certain type of weapon because you wanted to up your chances of getting better kit. And certain weapons way back in the day against different armor class types, and we're talking AD&D history here, did more damage against light armor or heavy armor or chainmail, or had different speed factors. And there's tons of different things all kind of mishmashed together to make one weapon potentially better in someone's hands than another. And then, Sean, I think there came weapon specialization and focus. I wanted to specialize and be really good with a weapon. Well, was it all swords? Then you would get like a broad area of, edged weapons. Then it was swords, and it was two-handed swords, and it was two-handed great swords, which I think goes back to wankery. It gets almost, it's odd we almost become noodly for the sake of noodly. So, Sean, is there something that you look at this and you say, I think that's stupid? Avant with all of that. Just give me a damage type. Who gives a fuck what kind of weapon I have?
When I grew up, I always picked the one with the most damage if I could. So a two-handed sword was always something I was whipping around.
Is that because you didn't realize that the bastard sword actually did more minimum and damage?
Well, it could have been bastard sword too. I don't remember, but I always picked the one based on damage. And
it did D10 and 3D6 against larger than man size.
Yeah. Well, and the problem was that we never used like weapon speed and all that other stuff that's supposed to compensate.
That stuff's annoying.
Yeah. I mean, I could whip around a long sword just as easy as a two-handed sword, right?
Yeah, and if you were human size, but somehow you got 20 strength, you use that two-handed sword one-handed, right? Right, GM? I mean, it always stands to reason.
So, we did some dumb shit, man.
So you bring this,
it was always like the damn, like, what is the most effective thing? Like, why would I equip myself with a dagger unless I needed something small, or if I lost, I always picked a dagger or something else, because if I lost the sword, at least I'd have something.
I'll tell you, one of the things I like about, I believe, I'm going back to my Delta Green in my head right now. I don't have my book in front of me, but I know World of Darkness does this. Delta Green has done this, where, hey, it's a submachine gun of this type, and it will list, a 5.56, 223, a 7.62, a this. They all do this type of damage. Oh, and some examples are a Beretta, blah, 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 blah. Oh, long rifles. That includes an M1. M1 Garand includes this and this. We'll give you examples within a range. I have had in the past a noodly argument with somebody who said, well, technically, an AK-47 does slightly more damage if you look at the pounds per square foot and the blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God, you have memorized a ballistics chart. I don't know if I want to play this game with you. But I love that idea of where you have a damage class and say within this class of like, and a D&D 5e kind of does this, like simple, martial, as weapon chunks. And then within it are different components. But I kind of like the idea, especially when it comes to guns. I kind of give a pass for some reason. Maybe it's my predilection to enjoying the noodliness of daggers versus poniards versus Cinque Dea daggers versus whatever. Kind of neat. But when it comes to guns, I really don't want to sit down and have an argument over whether the 357 in snub-nose has the same killing effectiveness as a 357 in a 6-inch barrel, past 50 yards, blah, 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 blah. That's like inconsequential, annoying to me. So games that bucketize up that type of thing, I totally dig that.
Yeah, and let the players come up with the whatever they want to be. Hey, I got in the game pistol, 1d6, 1d10, 1d12, whatever.
Gumshoe, dude. Gumshoe. It's like big guns, small guns, stuff that stabs things, things that smack things. It's that type of, and they have examples.
Yeah.
There's a 45 ACP. There's a 25 ACP. This is a 30-06 hunting rifle. This is a bigger bore gun. Cool. However, in your fantasy game, for some reason, we like long sword, short sword, pole arm. What type of pole arm? Oh my God! Look at your Unearthed Arcana, kids. A Fortune fork, a partisan, a this, a that. we really like to get noodly with some of the bits and pieces. And I know there are technical games out there with the high-tech stuff. And high-tech, I shouldn't even say, not like modern weapons are necessarily high-tech per se, but in some of the sci-fi games I've played, it's been a while. God, it's been a while. I'd have to dig out a couple of them. But I remember in Star Frontiers, you had gyrojets, you had needlers, you had laser rifles, you had Gauss rifles, you had different types. But it was all based on a type of projectile weapon, right? You had a stun baton, basically whatever their unlicensed version of a lightsaber was. A gyrojet rifle, a slug thrower, a this or that or whatever. But it's still like group. It didn't get too noodly. But for some reason, man, in our fantasy games, we want to... Do you remember back in the day, I think it was 2nd edition, you had flight arrows and sheaf arrows and hunting arrows?
Vaguely. Second edition wasn't... I didn't play that for very long, but I do remember some of those.
Oh man,
nuances.
I remember getting to some of the splat books and some of the pieces and parts, and I'd make an archer ranger somewhere, and I would go, okay, I have 15 sheaf arrows, 16 hunting arrows, this type of this. Oh, is he heavily armored? Oh, excellent. Twang. These do D10 against a heavily armored opponent. What the fuck? I think 5e is less this. Because
they differentiate the weapons now by type, like bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. So those classifications allow you to accomplish different things depending on what you're fighting.
It feels less noodly than older editions of that game.
Yeah, I mean maybe. I guess depending on how you define noodly.
Well, I guess so. Let me think about this. So if you're proficient in... If I'm remembering myself correctly, certain games would say, are you proficient in swords? Well, yes. Well, you can't be possibly proficient in all swords. Are they long swords, two-handed swords, short swords, falchions, which includes khopesh, which includes scimitar, which includes saber? Oh, my fucking God. It could get crazy. So you'd have ranges of weapons and so forth that you would be proficient in. And you would want to kind of kit yourself in a certain way. So you could have like double or triple proficiencies, I believe, through some of the Unearthed Arcana stuff back in the ancient days. And if you had a longsword, you could be just a motherfucking death on two legs with that thing. So when you came across the two-handed Holy Avenger, your paladin, or whomever it was, who was uber super specialized in the longsword, came across the +5 Vorpal two-handed sword. You went, geez, I don't know. I'm really not that proficient in it. I don't want it. You were hunting for a very specific item. In those old games, man, gear, we've talked about this before, gear made the man. They made the adventurer, I should say. You had to go into the dungeon to find the +2 mace because you needed that, because in the next dungeon you had to fight the creature that could only be hit by +2 or better weapons. You don't need that in 5e.
No.
So I think 5e's gotten a little bit better as far as not quite so noodly, but... So, Sean, you brought this up. Now I'm doing all the talking here, but what made you want to talk about this? You think this is just dumb and stupid, and how come it's not just, I hit him with my bludgeoning weapon, I pull forth, I draw out my piercing weapon and stab him? Boy, that sounds kind of stupid.
Well, taking a lesson from folks that play the older games, like BX, Old School Essentials, anything derived from some of that era.
Got it.
The one thing that Thaddeus and Hobbs were talking about, and Thaddeus specifically kind of spearheaded this, was if you have a sword and that does 1d6, and you have a hand axe and that does 1d6, why would you choose one over the other? Now, one would say, well, it matches my
panache. I need style. This is my idiom.
That's my thing. Like, I'm a hand axe guy, or, I'm hand axe woman. Okay.
Yeah, I want to be Fafhrd. He had a broadsword in one hand and a hand axe in the other. That's my gig.
Right. However, one of the things that I don't think, and this is what they mentioned too, was that the game master doesn't enforce the differences between the two, right? Physical differences. You're going into a dungeon. The dungeon cavern walls are 3 feet wide.
Well, I got a two-handed sword because that's what I fight with.
Yeah, two-handed sword.
Which clearly I can swing the Kobold Warrens, can't I? I mean, well, I just stab with it. It's totally fine, right?
Yeah. That's exactly it. Like
I get where you're going.
You're wielding them. It can be wielded differently. And so when you go, oh, shit, I'm going into this environment, there's no way I'm going to be able to pull out my sword or my javelin and have it be effective. Or I'm not going to be able to, basically brandish it in a way that's where an axe I can go. So if somebody says, all right, Sean, your character's in the dungeon. The corridors are 5 foot wide. It's dark. And you carry a two-handed sword. Sounds good.
And the roof is only 6 feet high at its highest dome.
Right. Yeah. And a wandering monster comes down and you're like, great, roll for initiative. All right. I take out my two-handed sword. And then the game master's like, no way, you're not going to wield.
Hits the ceiling.
Yeah. So you move it and whatever penalty the game master wants to inflict, right? Maybe it's disadvantage. Maybe it's there's no way you're going to be able to effectively, or it's all half damage. Maybe you attack and you hit, but all the damage is half because you can't get the big swing that you need with a two-handed sword.
Suboptimal, right? You're using the weapon in the suboptimal way.
Right. Now, if you take an axe or a dagger, dagger is going to be less damage anyway, but if you take an axe, say, with the same damage, assuming it's the same damage, and it's smaller and you can wield it with one hand and you're like whack, whack, whack like this, that's a whole different ball game. Now you're effective. Now you're doing full damage, so some of the penalties that we think about inflicting based on the environment and what the person's using as a weapon actually matters. So when I go adventuring, do I want that big honking sword? Well, sure, if I'm out on the field of battle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay First Edition, and I come up with a dwarf character, and you're rolling through the different. You get professions within this game. That you advance through professions and move your way on. That's how you advance up. And there's a dwarven tunnel fighter. I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. Wow, he comes with a short sword. I'm like, what the fuck? He's a dwarf. Where's his axe? This is dumb. Why would I want a short sword? Why wouldn't he have an axe? And my game master at the time, I cannot remember. I think it was Chad Wetterneck. Jesus Christ, where the hell did that name come from? But it was Chad. Chad's running this game. He goes, Brett, tunnel fighting. It's close quarters combat, man. You can't swing a big axe in here because you're down in the tunnels fighting the goblins, the kobolds, these tight, windy warrens. You don't have the space to wield that. An axe is a miner's tool, right? That's the hammer and the pick that the dwarves are used to using. That's open warfare, man. Like, oh, yeah. Fuck me, yeah. You're right. And then I think about the time when my ranger went in 2nd edition D to go take out a kobold warren single-handedly because I'm in high school and I'm a fucking idiot. And I think about doing this. My game master Schaefer and Eric and I talk about this, and Schaefer's like, no, dude, you can't. Oh, your composite longbow not going to be used on there. Oh, yeah, you're right. So it's not daggers and short swords are rekitted, my dude, so I could go in there and take the fight to the enemy. I think about the military games that I've played, the Delta Green games or whatever. When I ran Delta Green this last time, my buddy Nick, ex-Army guy, we were talking about different things. He goes, hey, I'm telling you right now, we're going to go clear a house. You're not taking that gun. He pointed at Zave's characters. He's like, why? He goes, that's a sniper rifle. You're not carrying that long gun as we clean rooms. He said, I have cleaned rooms. That's going to get in the way. Stay back in a fucking truck if that's what you're going to bring with you. If you don't have any goddamn common sense, here's a 1911. Shut up. I'm like, oh, I know this. I was ready to inflict some penalties. But, Sean, I think that is on a damn good point, as are you, that if you're going to get noodly on this, the game master, it's almost not incumbent, but you want to add some flair, some flavor, make it matter, right? You've got to have the terrain, the environment, make you need a different weapon. I like that.
And some people might get a little perturbed at, some may equate it to something like encumbrance or keeping track of your arrows or keeping track of ammo or how nuanced do you want to get in your game. But it is something. Otherwise, just have weapon. Weapon,
Yeah.
1d6. You tell me what type of weapon it is. Oh, I carry a sword. I carry an axe. Like, then it shouldn't matter what it is. I carry a water balloon. It does 1d6.
So
All right.
here, I just found it. Unearthed Arcana, first edition AD&D, on page 27. It has a length, has a weapon type, hand weapon. You know, it's got weapon types, atlatls, axes, whatever. A length, space required, then speed factor and armor class adjustments. The space required is something we don't talk about. And that's exactly what you're getting at here. It's like, hey, short sword, space required is 1 foot. Khopesh, 4 feet. A whip, 8 to 20 feet. You're not using a whip down here in the Kobold Warrens, kids. No space for that. What's this one? A sword two-handed, 6 feet.
Now, when they talk about that, Brett, do they mention whether it's radius, like all the way around a person?
I'm just grabbing it right off the top. But I would assume it would be all around the person. You'd need 6 feet of space to wield this goddamn thing effectively.
So one could argue like a whip, if it's 8 feet, you just need it to go backwards and forward.
So I've messed around with whips personally, and if you watch a whip practitioner, they zing around your head.
Sure.
Watch an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
It's not a straight line, dude. It comes sideways. It comes out and around all over the place.
Yes.
But
one could say, but I'm only doing this. I'm going front to back.
That's like saying a
over.
staff. All I'm doing is poking with my quarterstaff. No, that's not how you fight with a quarterstaff.
True.
That's not how you. And the thing of the space required is like, look,
to be effective.
You need this much space. If you want to sub-optimize it and only use your staff to stab like a spear, and only use your whip and this little goofy ass underhanded whack, and only use your two-handed sword to stab and punch with the pommel.
Right.
Guess what? D6 damage, kids.
Yeah. Then you're not doing
a minus to hit. You're going to do or not a minus to hit, even just less damage because it's less effective.
Right.
I like the idea.
We
really do.
We don't get into that noodly stuff. It's a very different type of game nowadays, and I don't know even back then whether we really didn't practice it that way. But I think it had to do with just I don't know, being 12 years old. But
Well, I think, like I said, I've encountered it a little bit, very little bit.
yeah,
But I remember them, and I'm 47 now, so they stuck with me enough that I remember those adventures and those exploits of those characters. And part of the things that I remember about them was I carried all this different gear with me, or my character had access to different stuff based on the need. And that actually, especially after my ranger with the kobold thing, I specifically would carry, we're getting magic items left, right, and center when the Forgotten Realm's doing their thing. And I would, greedily take the +3 dagger. So I was like, why? You don't even use a dagger. Dude, in tight quarters, I can't use my scimitar. I need a dagger. If we get caught in a narrow corridor, like we're just squeezing through, I don't have room to pull out my blade. I can't use my longbow in here. I want a trusty magical dagger I can use in this tight 6-inch wide space I'm stuck in, or whatever the case is. I wonder how much, I guess, there's no reason you can't implement it in a 5e game, or any game for that matter. If it's your sniper character has this big Barrett 50 cal, bipod mounted, anti-vehicle, anti-everything from an aircraft carrier to a Gazelle. It'll kill anything. There's no reason you can't say, dude, you can't conceal that under your trench coat. Good luck, kid. And 2, that's not a room clearing weapon. You cannot bring that to bear. Maybe there's such a thing as, even if you don't limit damage, like for a modern weapon or a space weapon, like lasers or whatever, you fuck up their initiative. Look, you go last. Your skill is your 2-hit suffers greatly because, sure, you go quick, but you've got to hoist this 10, 15, however many pound weapon up to your shoulder to fire it. While you're shooting from the hip, okay, no aiming. All your sniper stuff is gone. It's a single shot, kaboom. Is this something you want to do? Do you think you want to pull this into your next game?
I wouldn't. Well, maybe my next game. It depends. I would probably do it for more of an OSR based game. I don't know if I would do it for 5e necessarily. But
in my Avalon games, because it's a city-based game, and the way I describe it, and when I outfit pre-gens and stuff, I'm like, look, you don't have two-handed swords. No one has long swords. Or they have a pike because they were an ex-griffin, the city guard or something. Or maybe they have a long sword. But I kit the characters out specifically so that they're city-ready. CQC, close quarters combat stuff. You're not in an open field. You don't carry a lance with you. Your cavalier doesn't drag his lance into the dungeon to go fight the beholder. You just don't fucking do that. You know? And because Avalon, from a setting perspective, it doesn't make sense for people to walk around with two-handed weapons. One, without getting questioned, like, what the fuck are you carrying that for? But two, it's just unwieldy in the area. So that helps to stop people. But I think this is one of those pieces that it might be difficult to implement mid-game. Right? I think you could do it. I think you could do it in 5e or any game, really.
I wouldn't do it mid-game. And the reason I would do it OSR style is because there's less amount of... First of all, it's very susceptible to more home ruling, house rules.
Okay.
And it's more... I always picture some of the older school games as more... I don't know if ethereal would be more the word I'm looking for, but there isn't a lot of... Well, there isn't a ton of... It's not a skill list, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's elements of it that you put into place. Like you could say, all right, food's going to be a factor. Like I don't think a lot of 5e games, like, I mean, do you know how long, I mean, okay, so they have an artifact, the Tomb of Annihilation, that produces water. But you know how long it's been since my players have sat and eaten and wondered, like, they've been wandering around in a jungle for probably 45 days at this point.
Well, that's your fault as Game Master.
Well, maybe. But you have to kind of set the expectations. Like, okay,
exactly.
Here's the deal.
That's what I'm saying. Is like
right?
it's hard to bring it in. So Alpha in our Undermountain game, every Thursday, we get there. Every time there's a long rest, mark off of food.
Mark off of food.
Yeah, food and water. You've lost a day. You've lost a day. You've lost a day.
Yeah.
And
I would be interested to know how many BSers out there do that in a 5e game. Strictly.
We're only doing it because Alpha reminds us, because we're not used to doing it.
Right. It's always hand wavy because it's always a backseat. You want to talk about the story, you want about the adventure and the NPCs and like the treasure, or what the quest or whatever that is, and that goes back to like I don't want to keep track of encumbrance and all that.
How many arrows I have,
right?
And so on.
Yeah.
Alpha's doing this specifically. He said, "I want you to explore and so forth."
Right.
Excuse me, but be worried that maybe you've gone too far if you don't have enough stuff.
For sure.
Excuse me. So I'm like, yeah, fuck. So we've been mapping like crazy. My character's I came down, I built my dude. He's a rogue, arcane trickster type, mapper, sage background, blah. I'm trying to keep track of all the shit. Because I'm going to have to get back somewhere. And wherever we can, I'm like, I take the food, I do this, I pick this up. Is that edible? I take this, I take that. And I'm like, oh yeah, says Lenny. We should probably pick up all the food we can. I'm like, yeah, because all it's going to take is for us to overextend ourselves too many days one way. And if one of us doesn't have a crate food and water spell, we are so fucked. We're going to die down here. We're going to starve to death. And Alpha started that at the beginning. Like, keep track of this.
Right.
And I think that's one of those pieces where, yes, we as players should be helping our game master remember that. But it's a piece that as game master, I think you need to help remind the players. Because unless it's been forefront in your gaming, you're right. It's totally hand wavy, dude. Absolutely hand wavy.
There is so much stuff that we hand wave. I mean, it just happens. Like I've watched live streams and not a ton of AP for a very long length of time, because you could watch a video, an actual play on Twitch, and it could be 3 hours of dialogue and it doesn't progress to a point where it's like, okay, combat or time to eat.
Well, could be like
I can't remember the last
plus.
time I've ever seen any of that or heard it.
Yeah.
But OSR in older school games, I would probably want to set that premise up front, because because you're not relying on skills, you're not relying on my character sheet, and it's not going into. I think it's just a different mindset that all of a sudden you're kind of more resource intensive, and based on the resources that drives adventure. Like, I'm sure Hobbs has people wandering around an island because they want to make sure they get berries from this bush.
Well, you do not have class-based skills like never-ending cantrips in 5e. Which, I mean, again, I think 5e is a great game. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But it's a different type of game. Deep exploration and survival and stuff, I think, is harder in 5e than it is in some of the other ones. You need to explore certain areas because if you want to go defeat the Lich King who's causing trouble, or I use the Terrible who's pushing down into the free lands of Greyhawk, you better go get more than that broadsword you started with, because you can't fight the demons he's bringing with him. You need other stuff. It's not easy to make, and you can't just buy it, And I think you're right, because and you have this opportunity then when you're playing and you want to introduce this the first time, is, so Anja's character is the burly warrior, and they're ready to go into the goblin caves. It's you can do the game master fiat thing to a point and say, well, Anj, you're a warrior, you're first level, but you're trained, you know what you're getting into. You look at this cave, and you look over your side, and you see that cavalier, and you're like, that lance stays outside. There's no room for that.
Yeah.
And Anj goes, yeah, Sean's right. Brett, you got to leave. Oh, yeah, but, yeah, you're right. It really, without a horse, what's the use of the lance? And then she looks over to the elven longbowman. There's no room for that longbow in the dungeons.
Right.
Ah, shit, says the elven ranger. I need to put that aside. Rely on my longsword. Yes, you do. And vice versa, when you go out to the wilderness, the rangers should be looking around to the group of the barbarians saying, Paladin, if I were you, I'd invest in some leather armor. What? Take off my family crest? Yeah, it's the desert, you dumb shit. You're carrying plate mail? Water would be what you should carry. Put that on the camel. Carry your weight in water. Carry your armor's weight in water. And then talk to me.
That's one thing I did with Jeff's son plays with us on occasion. And he always plays the paladin. And he's like,
kids can't
stand
like
him. Dad, and he's just like a chip off the old block. Yeah, totally. And he's always, anyways. But what armor are you wearing? Plate mail. I'm like, I'll take a level of exhaustion. Hour goes by, take another level of exhaustion. I mean, by this time, he's like disadvantaged, and he's one point away from being dehydrated.
Because you can exhaust yourself to death in 5e.
Yeah. That's good. So, yeah.
And I mean, you could do a similar thing mechanic-wise in 5e in the dungeon. If you insist on using an unwieldy weapon down there, it will tire you out. It's not meant to be used this way. You can penalize, if you will. You could give people exhaustion.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the thing, too, is if you have different weapons and you say, well, you can't take the longbow into the cave.
Well, you can't use it effectively.
You can't use it effectively in the cave, so what else are you going to use? Well, I'll use this. Well, you're not proficient in it. That's the rub, right?
Yeah.
I used to I can't. You come across the cache, right?
Yes.
Brett, it's like, all right, what do we get? Oh, there's a dagger. Don't want it. Okay, there's a short sword. I'm not proficient in short sword. Don't want it because it's a -2 or -4 to use.
15,000 copper pieces. Don't want it.
Don't want it. But all of a sudden you're like, well, I'll take it just in case I lose my weapon or breaks, right? Oh, you break your longsword. You run into a rust monster. Wow, now I got the short sword. Then you get into combat and you're like, shit, -2. I can't hit crap. Why? Because I'm not proficient in a freaking short sword. You yell at the party because they're wondering why you can't hit crap as a fighter. So it's like some of these things that I personally have lost over the years. I just have for some reason. I think it's the different games I played.
Yeah, and I think in D&D, the proficiency component of it and making a character whose thing was a weapon. And maybe that's not the source of the evil, but it may well be part of that source, right? Where like, look, I'm not going to carry anything other than longswords because that's all I'm good at. I spent my whole life mastering longsword. I distinctly remember watching a friend of mine do that, and I would generalize whatever, and I just use whatever. Sure, so-and-so with his crazy-ass longshore would get plus god-awful knows what to hit and plus another god-awful plus 10 for damage. But I could use anything that we fucking came across. And I found that utility was awesome. And there's a cool thing about removing that and saying, look, I'm proficient with martial, simple, ranged, or whatever. Say, oh, I'm proficient with ranged weapons. That's cool. You know what? I'm gonna get a light crossbow because we're in the dungeons in these dwarven corridors. I bet you it's gonna be more effective. Or I'm gonna buy a short bow. Makes more sense. I don't have a long bow. Do it with short bow. A little bit of different draw. Not quite as powerful, but hey, I'm not shooting past 50 feet. Fuck it. That's perfect. I think there's the other thing that some of the how do I do this? I think the other component of this too is that if you, mechanically speaking, a player whose character's playing smart, the player's playing smart for the character, we have things like advantage you can give to people. You can give inspiration. So when the player tells you in 5e or any game that you have a Benny you can throw out at them in Savage Worlds, says, look, I take my plate mail off, I put it on the pack mule, I leave it in town, and I'm wearing my lighter chainmail. Why are you doing that? We're going down the dungeons, man. I don't need that heavy clanky shit. It's unwieldy, it's stiff. I can't sleep in that armor. I'll get ringworm, for God's sakes. It's uncomfortable. Fuck that. At least chainmail, I can doff it twice as fast and so forth. You go, yes, wise player. Throw him a Benny. Give him a point of inspiration. If you tell people, hey, it's going to be cramped over, hey, that armor, you could have some, well, I won't lose that. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's effectively, quote unquote, stupid play. Fine. You'll deal with what you deal with. Because in the old school games, your reward was you could work. Because you would come up to stuff like, hey, you can't use your two-handed sword in here. Oh, but I specialized in the Fletchered Fork with the Beck to Corbin as my backup. Yeah, you can't use it. Yeah. Bad design. No soup for you.
Well, and part of this is explaining that, right? You can't. Yeah, you don't want a character to you don't want a player to create a character and they have this vision in their head, and then you come along and go, yeah, you can't dual wield. It's just, you're never gonna have the opportunity because I'm gonna put you in a dungeon, or you don't do that, and then everything you pitch at them limits their build.
Where you tell somebody, right? Hey, you know what a really good spear is in first edition is an all pike, an AWL pike. It's this awesome blah blah blah, and then you forget to remind them that it's 18 feet long. It only requires 1 foot to. It only requires 1 foot to use because it's just a thrusting spear type of thing. You're dragging an 18 foot. 8'14". That's a new measurement.
8'14".
8'14". You're dragging this fucking thing through a dungeon? Are you kidding me? Well, I'm going to bring my lance with me because I don't want anybody to steal it. It's 14 feet long, you jackass. Well, yeah, but someone might steal it. You're going to lug a goddamn 6x6? Yeah, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at, dude. And a lot of the last few times I've run D&D 5e or Pathfinder or whatever for my home group, or even when I've run a gaming convention with 5e, it's been in Avalon. And the city-based characters have been pre-gens. Everyone's, it's a city-base. And I think sometimes the setting causes people to pick stuff that fits the setting because they ask me questions. Can I have a two-handed sword? Well, you're going to get look askance from the city guard. Yeah, good point. I don't want the attention. I'll go down to a broadsword. I'll do that instead. Okay, that makes more sense. You can get away with that. And the last times I ran like a big outside-y kind of a massive campaign, it was very much travel all over the place. It didn't matter. It really didn't seem to matter. But I think I'm going to make this matter next time, dude. I like this idea. Even if it's not an old school game, just bringing it out, saying, hey, look, gear yourself appropriately.
So I think we kind of wandered around a little bit with kind of the styles of play with different games.
Which is weird because we don't normally do that.
Yeah, but I think the weapon thing was the big piece. I hope it was. I know we kind of...
Well, and just to close on it, we talked about this a little bit with your space game and your modern game, whatever. Somebody who's specialized heavy infantry weapons, small arms.
Right. Yep.
Long guns. Good enough.
Right.
If
Then
you know
let
how
the player make up what it is. I mean, if they're, like Brett, he's going to give you the nomenclature and all this other crap. And if he likes that shit, well, great.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody goes, look, I want M1 Grand because I really like the ping noise it makes when the stripper clip pops out the top. Okay, good for you.
Right.
And somebody else says, well, I'll just take an M16A1 design because fuck it, I don't want to deal with that. Whatever. Doesn't much matter if the damage is the same. The rest of it's just flavor. Cool. Awesome. Let us know what you think, people.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Let us know if you adhere to some of these things and we just don't know about it. Be interested. So
yeah, cool stuff, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Dirtless, for subscribing, buddy. Let's get into die roll.
Let's do it.
All right. 2 to 4 miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery you want to share with you. Got 3 this week, pretty limited. First one, Discord now offers video. Newsflash, this is making its way around Twitch and Discord. Brett, we could actually do video on Discord if we wanted to ditch Zoom, but
holy crap.
Yeah.
I just bought Zoom. Dicks.
And I don't know I haven't seen how many video at one time it supports. Like Zoom does a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and the only reason I bought Zoom, and I know Zoom has its security issues. People have been porn bombed. I shit you not by Zoom.
Yep.
I haven't had that problem yet. And my crew would be like, that's fucking annoying. Click, start over. Just move on, keep it rolling.
Yeah. It looks like 10 video channels.
Not bad.
Show mentioned, but is that how many video people can you see at one point? Would be my question. I don't know if that's the same. 10 says that's a lot. 10 people.
That is
10 video.
Amount. Yeah. Honestly, it was only a matter of time because especially now with the video being more and more popular, I mean, Discord had to come up with that eventually. I'm willing to bet that was in the works for a while, and somebody said, "Fast track that shit! Fast track that shit!"
Yeah.
And it went. Cool. Very cool.
Second one came across Beyond 20, which is a bot for Discord. We've got it installed on our Discord channel. It does take some, you got to get a key, and then you got to input the key in a place, and then you got to get the extension into your browser, and that extension requires a key.
Well, that seems easy.
Way it brings kind of both together, but it's a D&D Beyond kind of quote-unquote integration into virtual tabletops. So you could actually take your D&D Beyond. I think if you do a roll in that app, it will show up in Discord if everybody's kind of playing in the Discord chat type of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you could actually do it to Roll20, but you can't do both. You have to choose one or the other. But it's just something along those lines. Let's see. Last one. This is going to come out a little late because it's, as of this recording, only has 3 days. One of the guys posted this. Shoot, I forgot about who did that. I'll have to check quick and see if
Zachary?
I can. No. Die roll. Hold on.
Oh, you're talking about So this is a teacher gamer handbook on Indiegogo?
Carl D posted it in our Discord where Teacher Gamer Handbook is the title of the product. It's on Indiegogo. It's written by Zachary Resnicek. And it's a book that teaches teachers how to implement role-playing games into kind of a curriculum.
Yeah, bringing role-playing games to the classroom is a tagline here. 36 life skills developed with a tabletop curriculum.
Yeah.
Interesting. This sounds like something that, our good buddy Paris down in Australia. I don't know if he still listens to us or has had a chance to lately, but the Monger.
Well,
he's been doing a lot of this type of thing. It just seems like it'd be totally right up his alley.
Yeah, Kojo.
Yeah, Kojo too. Yeah,
he's the teacher. So the thing is that it's a great idea. It's on Indiegogo, but you have to find teachers that are gamers or teachers that want to be gamers. So I think that's why it's not funded yet to the maximum. Indiegogo, I don't know if it requires full funding to actually launch the project.
This is a flexible goal, it says. They're at 28% of an $18,000 flexible goal with 3 days left as of today, the 20th.
Yeah.
I don't know what's a flexible goal. Campaign will receive all funds raised even if it does not reach its funding goal. So it will receive. So if it doesn't make the 18K,
they keep your money.
It will still get the funds to keep the motor running, as it were, on this one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little different than Kickstarter, and it's international. Or Kickstarter, somewhat international. Indiegogo, I think, has a greater scope internationally. But regardless, it's coming up short on their funding goal. But it's, man, what a great idea. Definitely.
Well, so I've not watched a lot of Indiegogo stuff, Sean. I don't know if you've played with it more, but sometimes with with these crowdfunding sourcing pieces, if you get in it after the fact, you're like, oh, this is cool. Can I still donate? Sometimes they have options. So if you read through this Indiegogo campaign by Zachary, you're like, oh, man, that sounds fucking cool. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if you're like, hey, you want to support it, you might be able to poke around and see if there's a way to do that on you. Not going to tell you what to do with your money or anything, but just those options are out there. Just because that campaign is ended doesn't mean your ability to support is also ended. So,
indeed.
Cool, man.
Yeah, cool. That's all that we have for this week. Brett, what are we talking about next week? I know kind of topics are kind of up in the air.
They have been. You know, one of the things I was thinking about was we've talked about initiative before.
Oh,
it came up earlier today around how side-based initiative, organizing things, and so forth. I kind of want to redo initiative. And
did we do one on initiative?
We did a long time back. Part of me wants to talk about alignment again. I don't know if I've just gotten sick or what my problem was.
Wow.
I might have had too many whiskeys or something.
Hey, there's not enough to talk about. Let's do it on alignment.
Let's do it on alignment. Just to make people mad. It's so annoying.
Everybody must follow alignment. If you're not, you're penalized. And by the way, it can shift.
I did get a copy of frack. Now I'm really going to sound like a goddamn moron because I don't remember what this is. Let me come here.
Remember Hobo Show and chat said no initiative, just go around the table.
Just go around the table.
Just go around the table.
That.
You go.
I did that in Vampire for the longest time. It worked great. Low Fantasy. I did get a copy of Low Fantasy. So I was thinking of buzzing through that and talking about that.
Oh, Brett, some of the games that have come up have all been me. Brett has not come to the table with a game.
It's been a while. Yeah, it actually has. So I'm thinking of reading through that one and hitting that on Monday. So that's leading my pack right now. So it might be Low Fantasy.
Yeah, Brett was more ASSH for sure. But
oh, absolutely. Yeah. It might be worth, if we do go through that one, it might be worth getting Hobbs on just because he knows more about it than I do. He runs it versus having read it. Much like we did with Tim DeShane. I read it, liked it, but having somebody who's actually done it. So that might be a thing we try to do as well. So
yeah.
Anyway, that's what I'm thinking of.
Well, sweet. We'll see what happens and how this pans out. So if we drop this episode in time, check out Brett on Saturday. Check me out on Thursday night. And otherwise, thanks everybody for joining us in the chat this evening and here on Twitch and Discord. Appreciate it. Otherwise, if you want to tell somebody about this show so that they could subscribe, that would be fantastic.
Always, yeah. That's cool.
All right. Well, having said that, I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
This episode of Gaming and BS brought to you with the help from the following BSers. Graham Minor, Corey Wynn, Larry Hout, Mark DeSaka, Pure Mongo, Chris Dio, Ray Otis, Ron Bishop, Thomas Hook, Wayne Humphrey, Craig, Brandon Barnes, Laramie Wall, Dan LaValle, Jason Hobbs, Sky, Old School DM, Perry Besor, Jim Fitzpatrick, John Kayward, Corey Gonzalez, Eileen Barnes, Robert Nemeth, Niall Diamond, Howard Bishop, Eric Salzwedel, The Closet Gamer, Jeff Goad, and Appendix N Podcast, Aaron Coleman, CW Mellencamp, Craig Huber, Old Scouser Role Playing, Jared Rasher, Andy Hall, David F. Baylog, Harrigan, Militia Bashinsky, Brian Rumble, Henry Newcomb, Eric Telvola, Roger Braslett, Mark Sohm, Andy Olson, Eric Avia, Ron Blessing, Jeff Seifert, Ghosty GM, Mike Hess, Angus, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, Rory Weston, Curtis Hinson, Jim Ingram, Daniel Garrett, Eric Frankhouse Presents, Hoos Carl, Chad Gleeman, Finolf, Josh Wallace, Mirko Froelich, Aaron Relia, Curtis Takahashi, Michael Dinos, Rich Wishan, and Joe Swick. Hey, if you're a fan of the show, do us a favor and let somebody know in your gaming group about us. Have them give us a listen. Maybe even subscribe. Head over to gamingandbs.com/subscribe. Thanks, BSers! This has been a Litterbox Studio production.